Hello, welcome to Leading with Purpose. My guest today is Vicki Dello Joio, a communication coach, Qigong master teacher, and mentor to visionary women leaders and a few brave men. For more than 4 decades, Vicki has supported thousands of professionals in expanding their influence, growing their audiences, and stepping into the spotlight with confidence and authenticity. Her work is devoted to helping women who feel called to be the change, to speak with passion, presence, and power, and to raise the energy of the people they serve. Vicki uniquely blends inner mastery with external expression, supporting speakers, coaches, healers, and CEOs to align who they are on the inside with how they show up in the world. Vicki, it's a joy to welcome you to Leading with Purpose.
It's always a joy to spend time with you, Mark. Thank you so much for the invite.
I love that we got to spend a little time in the green room talking and just feeling you being you. It just makes me feel very grounded right now in this conversation.
It's awesome. I feel the same. I feel very connected whenever we connect. It's kind of you have a talent for that.
Well, thank you so much. And I mentioned that you primarily do work with women really that are making a big impact. And yes, a few men like myself and other gentlemen. But I'm curious with the work that you do with women who feel called to be the change. So many of them are hesitant to really be fully seen and heard. What do you see as the real reason so many powerful women hold themselves back from the spotlight?
I think ultimately it's the story that we tell ourselves, the ways in which we hold ourselves back by sort of whether it has to do with old tapes that we haven't resolved yet, or the whole imposter syndrome thing that people talk about, or that there's a sense that somehow whatever you do isn't enough, and that there's also a way in which that when we're not aligned with what our internal purpose and passion is, and who we are really meant to be, when that's not totally intact, it makes it very difficult to come out, even if the belief system is there. So there's something on an energetic level that needs to be aligned before we can, or as we are emerging more and more into our purpose, because of course that's a life process, not a single event.
Right. Well, I know, again, it's very interesting to hear about these women who feel like they're not enough, because you work with women that are doing really big things, big things in the world, and that still have these issues. And how do you know when it's like the inner game or the outer game shift piece that you're focused on? You're talking about trying to get those two pieces aligned.
Well, so how do I know when they're not aligned? Is that what you're asking? Or
or how to support them on the outside stuff or on the inside stuff?
Well, ultimately, for me, they have to be the same. For me, what's happening inside needs to match what's happening outside. I think that the ways in which I help people it's multifold, because I'm bringing in, many of us who are in this type of work have a lot in our toolbox. And so I'm bringing in the energetic reading that I can do that'll clarify for me. Just I can read people around where their energy is being locked and where it's flowing. So that's one part. And then the other part is because I'm a director and I do a lot of work with storytelling, then I'm looking at what is it? What's the internal? What's the external? What happens when we really embrace our vulnerability as a strength, as opposed to something that needs to be hidden or protected? What if we thought of protection as something as I am, as opposed to you can't? So it's a sense of the expansion of something in Qigong that's called Wei Qi, which has to do with your externalized energy, what's happening on the outside. So I'm really looking a lot of times at everything from facial expressions, body expressions, and then actual literally energy read to what are the words that I'm hearing, and just looking where is their misalignment. And I basically ask a lot of questions. I think that's my main thing, is that I really know that people have the wisdom and the ability to find that path, but sometimes they just need somebody to hold it or probe deeper than they might have been willing to do by themselves, because, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame.
So you work with people that are speaking from the stage, people that are speaking at the UN, and so you're getting into the question I was asking was around facial expressions. And so do you help people because you use your hands and your body and your energy a lot. Do you teach your clients how to do that, or you just do the inside work and then that happens?
Oh, what a great question. Nobody has ever asked me that in that way before. I when I first started working with speakers, it was because I was doing a lot of speaking about energy. And so like I was talking to business owners about, how to harness their energy in the same way that if you can break a bunch of bricks with your hand or even with your forehead, what would it be like to apply that type of energy focus into work? And people kept coming up to me and saying, I really love how you tell your stories. I really love can you teach me to be more like you? And I would always say, no, but I can certainly teach you how to be more you. I can help bring that forward. So some people, I'm Italian, Jewish, it's a part Arab, that's very expressive, right? So we use our hands a lot. Other people from different cultures may not be that expressive in terms of how they use their face and hands, but I always am looking for how do we drop down south of neck. So it's not just like what's going on in my head and then trying to get it out there in a kind of unilateral way, but really what is it? How do we just bring it down into the body? And then there is natural then movement or natural expression that's going to be for that person. It's not that I think, oh, you need to use your hands more. I would never think in that way. It would be like you were suggesting. It would be more that the more people are embodying their beliefs, their values, their thoughts, their feelings, how they express themselves, the more they do that, the more natural it becomes. And then their bodies do what their bodies do when they're talking to their BFF. Which is really what I'm really looking for. It's not that kind of intimacy, but I'm really looking for that level of authenticity and lack of fear.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting when you bring up lack of fear and you talk about Qigong. You're a Qigong master, and we're talking about energy and specifically the energy in communication. And I'm curious how the Qigong work feeds into and fuels the energy of communication.
They're inextricable for me. So I'm I like to say I'm a master teacher in Qigong. I wouldn't call myself a Qigong master, but I am a master of the system that I teach, which is Way of Joy. I created it, so I better have some mastery in it. But I think that in terms of communication, I am also considered a master trainer in powerful non-defensive communication, which is a system of communication that was created by Sharon Strand Ellison, brilliant woman who really has looked at how we can become addicted to our own defensiveness. And that I think that when I first encountered her work, as she was talking about how do we ask questions that are curious instead of leading, or how do we give feedback that's not harsh and mean or punitive, but that's able to kind of speak your own truth, but from a place of real grounded presence, and how you can make boundaries, all of these different aspects of how we communicate with one another. And I was going, that's Wei Qi, that's this. I mean, it was all completely related to what I know from an energetic standpoint. So I think that there's a couple different things I'd say about the energy of communication. One is when we can align with our wisdom, our heart, our, what matters to us, and then the actions that we take or the words that we speak, when those are totally aligned, without having to prove anything, without having to push anything, without being unilateral, with that ability to be reciprocal, to be able to listen, take things in, filter out the things that are triggering us, and really go back to the heart of the matter, then we're in clean, clear communication. And to me, that couldn't be more important right now for us, at least here in the United States, but even globally, things are so divided and difficult right now. So the more that we can have that ability to stand internal in ourselves, be willing to see somebody else is standing on a different piece of ground. What does that piece of ground look like? Be able to communicate from those two places without feeling like you have to either merge or distance.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because you talk about rural leadership, and we can definitely look at that. And sometimes people get overwhelmed, feel powerless to work on rural leadership. But when we can look at leaders that are listening, who want to, any of the leaders, like whether they're in communities or in churches or in businesses, anybody who wants to elevate the energy of their teams, their audiences, or their communities, what's a practice or a shift that you believe can make a big difference for somebody who might just be learning about energy? What's a starting point?
Always the breath, which is so easy, right? And so almost, trite, but always the breath. So I think that when, for example, if you're dealing with a difficult situation on your team or in your community, a lot of times we tend to clench our solar plexus and tighten, and that shortens our breath. And the solar plexus, at least in Qigong, is connected to this field of Wei Qi, which has to do, like I said, with your externalized energy, that energy of I am, or I see, or I believe. That when we when we close the solar plexus, which is very natural, right? When we see conflict, if you're conflict avoidant, or if you're in a situation where you just feel overwhelmed and don't know what to do, or if you're in a place where you're just so angry you can't even think, that all closes the solar plexus really tight. And when we can learn through our breath, and there's practices for this, but through our breath to allow that solar plexus to open, it allows this field that's basically a protective field, because Wei Qi in Chinese medicine has to do with what protects us from pathogens and allergens and those kinds of things. In Qigong, it has to do with an energetic protection, and I can talk a lot about how I've experienced Wei Qi, but that when that is open, then we're able to kind of let the brain fog or the looping or the panic or the I need to get across my point, I need you to hear me, that type of pressure, that's really when we can come back to deeper listening without feeling like everything is at risk. Now, I'm not talking, of course, if you're in a life-threatening situation, although even when I have been in that type of situation, I found that coming back to that solar plexus and hearing myself in that guidance that's not just my brain mutter, chatter, but that guidance of the observer self, the part that's, some people connect to the soul essence or the spirit. That's the place I would start, to know that something's happening that you don't want to happen, and then to be able to ground in the face of that and be able to slow down time, to stretch time through your breath, and then come back to whatever the situation is. So it's really breath. I think breath is the answer.
I love that answer. And the fact that it's not a specific breath technique, it's literally, you're saying, being aware of the breath and just coming into the breath. You don't have to do anything that brings you to being present. Ground, yeah. Here's the fog, are the things I heard you say.
Exactly. And the other piece I would say is, again, something that you don't have to do a specific technique for it, but it's just to lengthen your spine. So the crown of your head lifts up, your feet are grounded. Once you lengthen that spine and you're in your breath, then you're aligned, right? So being aligned in Qigong, the upper body has to do with your wisdom, with your ability to have perspective, your ability to connect to guidance, and whatever is bigger than you, that sense of large perspective. The heart being the part that allows us to have reciprocity, to feel connected to one another, to know our own strengths and our limits. And then the bottom third of our bodies is all about our grounding and our ability to receive nourishment from the earth, and also to be able to feel our power. So when we have wisdom, passion, or purpose and power, then that's and all fueled by your breath, allows the movement of energy to happen. That allows shift and change to happen internally and then externally, because what we're doing, how we are internally, is going to affect, right? If I'm all like this inside, you're going to read it. So that's part of how do we match the internal with the external.
Well, that's right where my question was going next, and you kind of already led into it. Is I can see how the breath and the being present helps me or any other leader from our perspective. And then, yes, the other person will pick up on it, but it also feels just energetically, if you're in a CEO and you're in a boardroom, and not only will that person get it, but that the energy of the whole room can feel your presence and your grounding. Is there more to it than that?
I think that Not really. I mean, on the one hand, it's like that energy field shifts. I'm thinking about this one client who I was preparing to. She's a lawyer, a family lawyer, and she was doing a very big case in front of the Supreme Court. And she was somebody who she's very, very skilled. She's one of the top lawyers in her field, a very recognized lawyer. This was a big deal, though. She was internally, it was very hard. We did a lot of practice beforehand of like, you're going to come back to center. We did a lot of meditations. We did a lot of breath practices, things that she could do. And I got to watch her present to the Supreme Court because in Canada, which is where she's located, they actually broadcast that live. So I was able to witness a tremendous amount of pushback against this very important case, very significant case that she was presenting. And the attitude of the justices was almost like, you don't belong here. And this isn't really, it was very, I would say it was dismissive. What I saw is she answered these sort of aggressive questions, kind of like dogs biting or barking at her, very cleanly. She would take a breath, she would pause, she would answer that question and was able to bring back to center again and again. So she would be getting these different things that with many people would be thrown off. I guess the other time I've seen it is with, what's her name? Brown Jackson, the Supreme Court justice here, that when she was being, interviewed or grilled by members of Congress, she answered very cleanly, very clearly, and kept right on point. And that's what I watched this client of mine do. So and that shifted it. And it shifted it so much that one of the most aggressive justices, and they were supposed to take 15 minutes to make a deliberation and come back. They ended up having to take 6 months, taking 6 months. And she learned later that one of the main aggressive justices had flipped to a place where he became a supporter of what her position was. So yes. So I think that it does change that internal way of how she handled the questions, whether they were legitimate or not legitimate, but from a place with dignity, with respect, with positioning, with a sense of her own authority, shifted somebody who was thinking the opposite of her. So it's not a guarantee. There's no guarantee there, but I think that it's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking, I've got two different thoughts in my mind. Well, one is we've been talking a lot about Qigong, and we're a little late in the game, but for those who've been listening long and may not be familiar with the Qigong, can you share a little bit about what that means?
Well, Qigong is one of these really vast words. So when people ask me to define it, it always takes a little time. But what I would say is that Qigong means basically those, it's working the work of energy. They're working with energy. And there's over 8,000 exercises. Well, there's probably more by now, and counting, of different Qigong exercises. So somebody could study with me, and I've been doing this for over 50 years. Somebody could study with me, and then they could study with another person, and they might do entirely different practices. So it's like dance. It's like, is it Alvin Ailey? Is it ballet? Is it, tap? Is it something else? In the same way that's how vast this particular field is. But it's all, I think the thing that links Qigong is that it's based on the concepts of Taoism, which have a lot to do with flow and ease and effortlessness. And there's something called the water course way, just sort of letting things evolve as they do and showing up for them, being present for them no matter what, being able to embrace all that's happening from a place of equanimity. That's the thing that kind of brings all of these different practices together. But there's a martial art type of, Qigong, which is really about fighting. There's others that are spiritual. There's others. And the main one that's here in the United States is usually oriented around health and 5-element theory or, different aspects of traditional Chinese medicine and classical Chinese medicine.
That's a brilliant explanation of such a broad question. And it helps me to set up really that for us, it's a conversation around leadership. How Qigong plays into our personal leadership. So I'm curious, the name of the show is Leading with Purpose.
Yes.
What does leading with purpose mean to you, Vicki?
Oh, I love that. Well, I think of purpose as being connected to our hearts, which is central. And for me, when I think about leading with purpose, it has to do with our own personal destiny, if I can use such a big word, our own personal, what we came in with. That's part of you that's consistent from the time you were born, that sort of lasts through you die, which has to do with cultivated values, but it also has to do with a sort of inner knowingness. So leading with purpose means to me that there's an intention that you have, that you're here to provide, that you're here to create connection through, and that when we're in tap with that heart part of who we are, to me that becomes inarguable. You can't talk people out of what their heart knows. They may appear to capitulate, but when our hearts know something, it's solid. So it has to do with the solidity of each individual leader. That's what purpose means to me.
That's a beautiful, eloquent answer in a uniquely positioned way. I was very from the heart.
Thank you.
Well, Vicki, again, I'm so grateful for our connection and your mentorship in my leadership. For women who may be interested, how do we learn more about you? I'll put everything in the show notes, but just so that anybody listening along.
People can connect with me. Yourpowerpresence.com is a great one. If they do that, then they'll be invited to download a particular thing that has sort of Qigong for speakers, and everybody's a speaker, by the way. I don't just mean people speaking on stage, whether speaking one-on-one to a difficult family member or a potential client or, a boss or an employee or a team member, whoever it is we happen to be speaking to, or if we're speaking from a stage. These are very simple, quick, easy to learn things. They'll be able to get that, and they'll also be able to find my contact information there. But you can always just reach me at Vicki@thewayofjoy.com or Vicki@myname.com, Vicki@VickiDelloJoio.com. Either one of those will get to me. But yourpowerpresence.com, they'll get a little gift as well.
I love it. And you do a big annual event that's coming right up. You're heading into the new year.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Nourish the Flame and what people experience there.
Nourish the Flame is I think of it as part of my legacy give back time. So Nourish the Flame is a 3-hour workshop where people will have an opportunity to tap inside to their own purpose, to their own mindset. There's a lot. We'll be doing some Qigong, which is some movement. It's simple movement. It's not complicated. It's not difficult, but it's a kind of a combination of, I think of it as almost a workshop of embodied prayer, where you're not just thinking through, okay, these are my resolutions for the year to come, which of course hardly ever work, and they certainly don't last, that when we can embody them and put those understandings deep into the cells of who we are, then our cells carry it forward, right? Our energy carries it forward. It doesn't have to be in your head. It doesn't even have to be conscious. It's something that you're embodying. So these particular practices that I'll be teaching they're called manifestation forms, which means that they help align energy to be able to see unfold what you're visioning and beyond. They help you manifest what you're putting your intention to. And we become very conscious of what that intention is during the course of this workshop. There's lots of different ways in which I do that, lots of different tools that I use. But the bottom line I think people will walk away with is, first of all, certain practices they can do, particularly in situations that feel difficult or are hard, or where they feel like, okay, I want to take a next level. I want to level up who I am, how I'm appearing, what I'm doing in the world, how I'm showing up. That they'll have tools that they'll be able to do fairly quickly, fairly easily. We're not doing a lot of very complex stuff, although they're based on very complex things. I'm not doing entire forms, but I think that really what people will walk away with is a sense of, okay, I've really clarified and distilled what it is I want to see manifested in 2026, and I have the tools to make that happen. Not so much the business tools, but really the tools that are the energy that is going to help them apply business tools.
I love that you said that, the energy to help them apply business tools. We work a lot in strategy and helping people to develop their collaborations, their JV partnerships and everything. And yeah, absolutely. To me, it doesn't matter what strategy it is. It doesn't matter if it's marketing, sales, even your business structures, your teams. If you're not in the energy, if you're not in alignment, none of those other things work well.
It's really true. I mean, I've been even experiencing that myself. You know, a lot of times I'll right before I do a big event, I'll sort of have all of the things that say, yeah, but, right, happening in my life. And so I've had some yeah, buts happening. And it's been really an interesting process, and looking at how do we balance what, you know, if it was like, there's like, for instance, I was saying to you in the green room, I had pulled a Tao card that said that I was at a standstill and I needed to retreat. And I was like, that's right. At the same time, I've got this big event happening right between Christmas and New Year's. It's on December 27th. And I realized that being in retreat, it doesn't have to be polarized, being able to balance. And I don't mean balance our life and our, you know, but really looking at internal, external part. How do I create retreat within the context of preparing for a big event? So that's my challenge this time. And it's very easy to kind of be challenged at any moment, regardless of something big happening or not, whether it's our own internal voice or external things happening. So I think that, this is an important time, like I was saying, for people to do work that helps to support them energetically. And that's part of why I do this. I don't do it for the money. I don't make much money at it. It's really about I want to see change happen in my lifetime, and how can I support the change makers to really show up as their very strongest, most grounded, wisest selves.
That's so beautiful. And it's funny that you shared your story again, because you touched on it before we started recording, and it's very relevant for a lot of other people, because you're talking about, you know, wanting to keep the momentum. You've got an event to deliver, you know, people that are counting on you, and you're inside, it's telling you to pause. And holiday for most people in the world, or at least our country, whatever religion you might be, there's different things celebrating. Because so many people are taking that time off. It's a great time to hibernate and to be with the loved ones and not to think about work. It's people give you that grace.
And that's what the winter season is about. It's about retreat. It's about deep listening. It's about coming back into yourself. It's about being with the water element, which has to do with adaptability, you know, how water can be flowing or ice, you know, that ability to adapt and shift. So yeah, it's very in alignment. Is that hibernation time it is what nature calls us to do.
And at the same time, the world is calling us to nourish our flame, to be out there shining brightly. And so there's a lot of people that have a lot of momentum and a lot of big plans and big visions for 2026. And
Yes.
That pull of like, oh, I just want to relax with my family, but I got all this stuff to do.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience there, Mark.
Certainly. Vicki, I've said that your presence in my life. Any last words that you want to share before we say goodbye?
Oh, thank you, Mark. It's been a joy always to be with you. And you're just, I'm so grateful for the work that you do in the world. And what I just want to say to folks is, if you have something that you feel like you have a purpose, you feel that sense of intention, or even if you don't, but you're looking for it, please give yourself the grace of going for it. Please give yourself whatever it is that you need to nurture that spark of who you are, because we need leadership, we need clarity, we need compassion, we need a new way of being, a new paradigm of connecting. And if you have some of those keys, which I'm imagining if you're watching Mark's show, you do, please follow it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Vicki. And thank you all for showing up, for being part of the show, but showing up for you, yourself, and for the people that serve. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leading with Purpose. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to lead with purpose and make a meaningful impact. If you're ready to discover where you stand on your leadership journey, I invite you to take the Soulful Leadership Assessment. It's a powerful tool to help you align with your leadership style and your true purpose.